Hi friends, welcome to lesson 1 of our IELTS listening course. In this lesson, we're talking about the match-in question type. It looks like this on the test. Now, this question type comes up really frequently on the IELTS listening test, so this video is going to be really helpful for you. We're going to do 2 things in this lesson. Number 1, we'll look at different strategies and tips to help you to do well on this question type. And then number 2, I've prepared lots of practice questions, all to do with this matching question. Learning about the strategies and then practicing in the questions is a great way to study for the IELTS listening test. Okay, we will start in 1 second, but if you're new to this channel, hi, I'm teacher Luke from EnglishTestReady.com. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and like the video because it really does help me a lot. Okay then, well, on the paper-based version of the IELTS listening test, this matching question is pretty confusing. It looks like this on the test, and it's quite a confusing format. But your job is quite simple. You have to match the letters with the numbers. The numbers are the questions, and the letters are the options. So in this example, you need to put a letter by the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. On the computer-based version of the test is a bit more simple. You simply just have to drag the answer over. If you want to change your answer, you just move it back. Also, you should know that sometimes you might be able to put more than one letter or more than one answer for each question. If you can, it will say so clearly in the instructions, so make sure you read those instructions really carefully before you begin answering. So that's the basics. Now let's jump into some strategies to help you score high for this question type. These are 4 strategies I have for you. Let's start with number 1, which is answer in order. In these matching question types, the questions 1 to 4 will be mentioned in order. So in this example, is in a rural area, only opened recently, and so on will be mentioned in order. But the answers, A to E, will appear randomly. So for this sample question, the speakers will first talk about in a rural area, then only opened recently, and so on. The options, in this example, the hotel names, will be heard in any order. If you read the questions very carefully before you begin listening, then you can pay attention mostly on the answers as they come, because you'll know that the questions will be mentioned in order. This shows the importance of pre-reading the questions really carefully before the listening starts. Okay, now let's look at tip number 2, which is to listen for paraphrases or synonyms. It's very rare on the IELTS listening test that the speakers use exactly the same words as are in the questions. Normally, they'll paraphrase it or use synonyms, but have the same meaning. This is the IELTS test testing you on your understanding of the listening text, not your reading ability. And it's vital you understand this. You will not listen to the same words. You have to pay attention to synonyms or paraphrases. Let me show you some really quick examples here. Again, in this example, let's look at number 1, in a rural area. It's very unlikely you'll hear this on the listening test. Instead, you might hear in the countryside, not near a busy area, in an agricultural region of the country. These are paraphrases or synonyms. Another example, facilities for business functions. Again, it's very unlikely you'll hear this. Instead, you might hear something like, has conference rooms for business meetings. Last example, has an indoor swimming pool. You won't hear that. Instead, you might hear something like, a place for the children to swim. So this is so important. I've taught many students who struggle with this because they only listen for the exact words as in the question. But it's very unlikely that the speakers on the listening test will use those exact words. Instead, they will almost certainly use synonyms or paraphrases. It's very important you know that. It's also important that you're aware of my strategy number 3, which is be aware of distractors. A distractor is a piece of information which is there to distract you from the real and correct answer. Normally, distractors are very similar to the correct answer, but they're wrong just a little bit. So the speaker will say the wrong bit, then say, oh, but, or however, and then correct him or herself with the correct answer. The IELTS listening test want you to hear the mistake and then check for the correct answer. These are what distractors are. And on the IELTS test, these distractors are there to trick you to make sure you really understand the whole passage. Luckily, these distractors do come in a sort of pattern, so let me show you these patterns now to help you when you do your real test. Here are some sample sentences containing distractors based on our sample question about the hotels. I've highlighted the relevant words. The Bridge Hotel feels like it's in a rural area, but in fact it's on the edge of a large town. The Royal Oak Hotel used to have a large swimming pool. However, a friend went there last month and said the pool has been replaced with a tennis court. A tip I often give my students is to always write out the answer as soon as you hear it. So write the letters A, B, C, or D next to the question. However, be prepared that if you hear a distractor, you should change it. But it's good to write the answer first, just in case it's not a distractor and then you miss it as you go through the listening text. On the paper-based version of the IELTS, you can write as much as you want or cross out as much as you want, because at the end of the test, you'll transfer your answers onto an answer sheet. My last strategy before we jump into some practice is to always answer, even guess if necessary. Of course, if you don't write any answer, you're guaranteed to get 0 points. And as we saw on the scoring criteria earlier, you can't really make that many mistakes on this IELTS listening test. So if you're not sure, make sure you always put something down and make an educated guess if necessary. And now you need to do some practice. Practicing is a great way to prepare for this IELTS listening test. So I've made several different questions for you, and the answers will come at the end of the video, so make sure you watch all the way to the end to check how well you did. Okay, good luck, and I'll see you at the end of the video.
You will hear a communication studies student talking to his tutor about optional courses for the next semester.
Come in. Oh, hello, Jack. Have a seat. Right. You said you wanted to see me to talk about your options next semester?
That's right. We have to decide by the end of next week. Really, I'd like to do all 5 options, but we have to choose 2, don't we?
Yes, but the choice depends on your major, to some extent. You're majoring in communication studies, aren't you?
That's right.
So, for example, the media studies option will cover quite a lot of the same area you did in the core module on mass communications this semester, the development of the media through the last 2 centuries in relation to political and social issues.
Well, that was interesting, but I've decided I'd rather do something completely new. There's a women's studies option, isn't there?
Yes, Women and Power. Again, it has a historical focus. It aims to contextualize women's studies by looking at the legal and social situation in the 19th and early 20th centuries.
So it would be useful if I intended to specialize in women's studies, but I'm not sure I do, actually.
Well, it might still be useful to give you an idea of the issues involved. It's taught by Dr. Steed.
Oh, really? I'll sign up for that then. What about the option on culture and society?
That addresses the historical debate on the place of culture since the Industrial Revolution in Britain.
So a historical focus again?
Do I get the message you're not so keen on history?
Well, it's just that we seem to have done quite a lot this semester. Anyway, I'll think about that one.
If you're interested in a course focusing on current issues, there's the option on identity and popular culture. That approaches the subject through things like contemporary film, adverts, soap operas, and so on.
That sounds interesting. Can you tell me who runs it?
Well, it's normally Dr. Stevens, but he's on sabbatical next semester, so I'm not sure who will be running it. It should be decided by next week, though.
Right. Well, I might wait until then to decide. And the last option is Introduction to Cultural Theory, isn't it? I'm quite interested in that too. I was talking to one of the second-year students, and she said it was really useful. It made a lot of things fall into place.
Yes, but in fact, in your major, you'll have covered a lot of that already in Communications 102, so that might be less useful than some of the others.
Oh, I'll forget about that one then.
Now, while you're here, we could also discuss how you're getting on with your core module assignment.
So you just did some strategies and practice. I hope that was helpful. Now you can take a full test here. Taking a full test like this will help you prepare fully for all of the different questions on this IELTS test.